such a privilege to be with you to talk about emotional intelligence. Greetings from everywhere where I belong, the Connection, Evangelical Alliance, One People Commission, Hope, and the list goes on. I'm so delighted to be speaking to you today on emotional intelligence. You know, the interesting thing about life is most people, when they start out in life, people which we think that are model, we cannot think about how smart, how intelligent, how they are. So most people, years up till now, are measured by their intelligent quotient. So it's a function of their reasoning ability and the intellectual, logical reasoning. So most promotion and advancement in life actually is about how smart you are. And there's nothing wrong about it because God gave us that to be. And then we soon realize that not only is the IQ that makes you to be a leader, but you actually need emotional intelligence. So we have gone through the period and the season why you need the emotional intelligence, which is something that determines, how do you determine your personal mood, your emotion, and your behavior, particularly how you understand yourself when you are leading others. You and I know that there are many people who call themselves leaders, very smart, very intelligent, very theologically astute, but then their behavior is not leading others. Rather, people are perplexed, people are distraught about the way they lead. So they will say that they lack emotional intelligence. But then, of recent, we have now discovered that in leading in a global world where there are diverse ethnicity, there are diverse people, you don't only need the intelligent quotient, you don't only need the emotional quotient, but you now need what is called the cultural intelligence, what we call the CQ. You want to ask me the question, what is cultural intelligence? What is CQ? It's actually a person's ability to function effectively in a variety of cultural contexts, both locally and internationally. So what does that mean? It means that your fluidity in your ability to engage, not only in knowing yourself, but in knowing other people, and it is that fluidity of you to be able to engage with those who doesn't look like you, smell like you, or doesn't come from the cultural paradigm in which you operate. And it has been said that only those who understand cultural intelligence will be the future leader of tomorrow. Because we live in a global world. You cannot work only within the people within your context. You have to work with people who are totally different from your context. But I just want you to hear me down a little bit, because most of you I'm talking to, you are Christians, you are leaders, you are pastors. And you almost want to ask me the question, where is the theological position in cultural intelligence? I love that. See, Bible is such a very interesting book. Most things we're looking for, I actually found in the Bible. I realized that the master of cultural intelligence himself is Lord Jesus. How? Jesus understands culture. But then God understands, who created culture, understands culture much more better. The incarnational narrative of Jesus Christ helps us to understand cultural intelligence. See, in the beginning, in the book of John, the Bible says very clearly that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Who was with God in the beginning? Jesus Christ. Basically, Jesus was with God in the realm of the kingdom of God, in everything that the kingdom of God could be. But then, in verse 14 of John 1, it says, the Word became flesh. Now watch that. Watch the moving, the Word became flesh. The Word that was with God now became flesh, and made his dwelling amongst us. So what the Bible is saying there is that Jesus was able to transcend the kingdom of God narrative of culture, and then incarnatively engage and embrace with us in this world. So that means Jesus still God and still man. aware and conscious that he's God without losing his Godhead, but then he was able to engage with men. So Jesus was moving in cultural paradigm. You can see how Jesus moved in this context. So he grew with us as men. He understood the culture, the Jewish culture. He understood the language. He understood the people. He embraced the totality of that culture without losing his Godhead. So what did Jesus do? Jesus moved through the paradigm of cultural intelligence without losing his identity of who Jesus is. But he even went beyond just his own Jewish nationality. You and I know that he even went as far as to the Samaritans, and how he actually expresses himself, even to the low, the leper, to those who doesn't have an understanding or acclamation within the world that he lived. He was able to cross culture, engage with a different culture, and then communicate, relate to the extent where it was understood. Now, having understood that theological background, what is important for us to follow up in this particular moment is, why is cultural intelligence needed? Why is CQ needed? Like I said earlier, we live in a global world, in a global church, in a global missionary context, with diverse context, with diverse relationship, with diverse work, with diverse ministry. See, the days are gone where we do church or we do leadership within our own people. Wherever you are in the world, people are going to travel to where you are. And wherever you are, you're going to travel to other areas where it doesn't look like where you come from. And that's why being culturally agile will determine how you are successful in life. For me, one of the most interesting examples will be currently my experience with building my website. Interesting that the person that built my website was from Dubai. I was relating with him within his own cultural context in Dubai. The person that provided the content for me was from France. The person that designed it was from Nigeria. The person that took the photograph of my website was from Ireland. The administrator for it was here from UK, and while the person that designed my logo was from United States of America. Just pay attention through that cultural fluidity of the way the world is. Which means it's only a person that doesn't want to grow into the future will limit your core within your own cultural paradigm. It means that we have to move from a particular culture we found ourselves being intentionally engaging with other culture. It will only take cultural intelligence to engage in a diverse context with everyone around the world, particularly for most of you who are listening to me, as pastors, as leaders, as head of establishment. You need cultural intelligence if we are really going to navigate the future. But then there's a challenge. There's a challenge that we are all faced, and we don't even know that we face this challenge. It's actually navigating between what I call the cultural core and your cultural flexibility. And let me explain that. In a scale of 1 to 10, you have your cultural core and you have your cultural flexibility. Your cultural core is what determines how you behave, what you see, the worldview you are shaped from. It actually determines the values that shapes your life, your cultural core. It shapes how you think. It shapes what you say. It shapes everything about you. And then you have the cultural flexibility. That is the one in which you can change and adjust. The challenge with most people will be that their cultural core will be like 7 in a scale of 1 to 10, where the flexibility is 3. So which means they are so unadaptable, they are rigid within the cultural lens in which they see life. And then that is where the challenge for most people come. I can imagine people of the older age, how their cultural rigidity within their core will make them not to say, I cannot tolerate this. No, this can't be. This is not how we behave. This is not how we do things. This is not the things are. Because they are rigid within their cultural narrative. But then, you will imagine the emerging generation, the Generation Z, the millennium. You will understand that because of the global world that we live, they are more culturally flexible to adapt and to adjust to what we do. But your cultural core then will determine actually your biases, your prejudice, and your microaggression when you are dealing with people. Let me explain that. All of us has biases, and our biases are shaped by our cultural content. So, for example, your biases are our subconscious attitude, our perception of others, the influences and the actions and the behaviors that we have. So one of those biases is, if you see a Chinese person, you don't even know whether that Chinese person was born in the United Kingdom with an English accent. The first thing you say, you're going to ask the person is, do you fight Kung Fu? Do you eat noodles? Because our bias has been shaped that this is how a Chinese person should be. So if you see a woman in Puda that wears the clothing they wear in the Middle East, in her mind, oh, she's a Muslim, she could be a Christian. But it's our cultural biases. If you see a man wearing the long white robe that they wear in Arabian country with a rucksack, in your mind is, he's a bomber. He's going to set the bomb loose to all of us. So we are shaped by that cultural biasness. If you see a black man, a young black man with a hood coming in front of you in the middle of the night, or even on a daytime, you almost in your mind think he's going to rob me or he's selling drugs. Biases. So we also carry all these biases and all these things that shapes our life, what we think, what we do, or how we see life. Then there's the stereotyping, the judgment or attributes we particularly give to a race or a gender or a group of people that is not true. So I have experienced this so many times in my life. The stereotyping. Stereotyping when I'm within my white colleagues. Let Yemi pray. But when it comes, let us talk. Let us do some talk that are intellectual. No. We're not going to ask Yemi. Stereotyping. If you are black, this is how you should behave. This is what you should do. Stereotyping. But these are not true about what we are. I remember many times in my early days when I was a missionary, and once I arrived at one of those good old Anglican church on a Sunday morning, the first question they will ask me will be, when did you arrive? I'm like, I've been living in this country. I was in another church where they asked me, can you really speak English? I said, because I'm black and I'm a missionary from Africa, that doesn't mean I can't speak English. But I will never forget a church where they asked me, we don't think you can speak to us, but can you dance for us? Since Africans like dancing. What a height of stereotyping. These are the things that are shaped. These things are shaped by the biases, by our conscious cultural core. Because we have not been exposed to be flexible, so we are shaped by this. And most of these things are shaped by our background, how we were born, the people we live with, the environment we live with, what our parents say to us, what the people around us, what they have assumed. All those things shape what has framed what we have become. And then it's inadvertently we engage other people in this way without knowing the effect and the impact that is having on them. What about microaggression that we don't even know that we kind of send a message to people? A subtle and a verbal non-insult, denigrating messages directed towards individuals to malign their identity. One of the things that my wife told me the other time was, born in Britain, my wife born in Britain with a good English accent, went to school in English, and she was asked one time that, where are you from? She said, I am from England. She said, no, where are you really from? She said, I'm from England. So where were you born? She said, I'm born in London. No, where are you really born? She said, I was born in Stratford Hospital. I was born in London. So the guy was getting frustrated. He said, that's not what I mean. I mean, you must have been born in some bush of Africa. So I don't mean. My wife said, no. The same way you are born in England, the same way I'm born in England. So you can see some elements of microaggression that demean other people without knowing that we are demeaning them by the way we are speaking unto them. And sometimes people ask you, they ask me that all the time, where are you from? It's like, no, I fell from heaven. You're asking me where I am, where am I from? So these are the kind of things that we subconsciously communicate, that it demeans the people we are saying it to without knowing that it's demeaning them. You know, there's this great myth that we all are fall foul to, and we think it is true. We think if we learn about racism, if I have a friend that is of color, I'm a white person. If I'm a white person, I have a friend that is a white person. Or I've gone to a restaurant that is not of a white restaurant, or maybe I go and eat a curry. Or I travel so many countries in the world. Or I have people in my team who are not of my color. Then I am culturally agile. No, you are wrong. It's a myth. It's not a reality. It's a myth in the sense that you don't become culturally agile because you've just spoken to somebody that is not like you, because you've just eaten with somebody that is not like you, because you've just listened to somebody that is not like you, because you've just embraced somebody that is not like you. It's just information. Information without an intentional revelation, you can never have a transformation. Most of the time, we stop at information. And information is great, but most of the time, it's not intentionally deliberate to provoke our inner being so that we can change for better. Until we'll evaluate ourselves and intentionally look at our cultural values, it is then we are going to give space to be flexible. So that way we can then increase our flexibility scale and then begin to look at our cultural core. What do we need to change? What is it that we don't need to change? What do we need to adapt to? What do we need to accept? What do we need to live by? What do we need to learn about other people so that we can enter their world? Then the question then is, how do we change to be culturally agile? Which takes me back to the whole concept of cultural intelligence. How do I change? It's about traveling that journey. How do I become culturally agile? How do I become culturally flexible? How do I not only think about myself, but how do I think about other people's world and their context, so that my behavior and action is an understanding that I want to enter into somebody else's world so that we can work together in unity. There are 4 capabilities or components of cultural intelligence. The first one is called the cultural intelligence drive, and I will explain. The second one is called cultural intelligence knowledge. The third one is called the cultural intelligence strategy. And the last one is called cultural intelligence action. Now, what is cultural intelligence drive? See, cultural intelligence drive is when you show some deep level of interest, a persistence and confidence when you are having towards having a multicultural interaction. It's a kind of a motivation that you have within you. You have a drive, a motivation. I want to really become culturally agile. It's a motivation, it's a drive, it's an intention. I really want to. I'm prepared. I'm passionate about it. This is what I want to do. I want to move from where I am to where I need to be to make a difference. It's a motivation to learn and adapt a new cultural setting. You see, there are always, for me, there are a couple of examples from my colleague. I was one time traveling with a friend of mine to Afghanistan. And then when we got to Afghanistan, particularly in the capital city, and we went for a meeting. And I was amazed at the meeting that when we got to the meeting, can I still continue? When we got to the meeting, I was shocked that we spent almost 80% of the time at the meeting just talking about relationship. I was shocked that we were talking about how was your family, how are things going on, and in my own mind, I was thinking, why do we need to waste time talking about how was the family? We traveled all the way from UK to Afghanistan. It's not yet to go and be talking about what's going on. But then, just about 5 or 7 minutes before we left the meeting, and he then pulled through what we came there to discuss. And I could see the people at the other hand, they just signed it off. Yes, 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 yes. And when I left that meeting, I asked him, how did that happen? And he said this to me: you have to understand the drive for cultural integration in this world. He said to me, if we were to be in UK, when you come to meeting, A is A, B is B, C is C. You repeat what you said so that people know exactly what it is, and you shake hands and you go. But he said, in this culture, if you try that, you will never get any result. And he said this to me: that is the first step in having a cultural drive, in knowing how to engage when you are in a different culture. I can imagine myself going with my English brain. We're here for a meeting. Let's settle it out. I would not have come out with anything. But by following the cultural understanding of the place, we were able to get results. Cultural drive, the motivation, understanding what it's to be learned. The second one is called the cultural knowledge. This is understanding how cultures are similar and how they are different. So, for example, cultures are different when you are doing business, like I've just said. Cultures are different in knowledge. How do we learn different things within different culture? Cultures are different in value and in norms. Cultures are different in socio-linguistic and also in leadership. I remember my friend Steve Clifford, the ex-general director of Evangelical Alliance. Every time we're going, he's following me to a meeting. I will first of all tutor him. Steve, don't say this. Steve, say this. When we get there, address people by their name and their title. When they address you as Mr. Steve, don't say to them, call me Steve. Understand that you are entering a world where respect and value is important. When they give you a gift, don't just say, no. No. It's okay. When you refuse it, that means you are refusing them. Accept the gift and say, thank you. Whatever you do with the gift is up to you. So understand that this world that you are entering, you need to understand the nuances, the things that shapes, that forms this particular culture. It's the same thing in the understanding of the knowledge of the leadership. I can imagine the challenges that you will have as leaders when you have diverse people of different cultures in your leadership. The way we see leadership as an African and Asian is different from the way people see leadership in the Western world. In the Western world, it's bottom up. Let's make decisions at the bottom and we find our way to the top. in Asia, on Africa, is top to the bottom. Why? If you are you are a leader, act like a leader, talk like a leader. Lead me. I'm not here to make a decision with you. Just lead me. And then if you appear to be bottom up, you are seen as a weak person because you are supposed to lead. Whereas in the West, if you want to act as if you know where you are going, people should follow you, they call you a dictator. It's about knowing and understanding the value, the shape, the norms that people have in different contexts. The same thing is in communication. There's a high and a low context in communication. Here in the West, we have a low context when it comes to communication. When we come to a conversation, what I say is what I say, and that's what it is. White is white, black is black. And let's say it as it is and we move on. But you don't say that in an African or Asian context. Why? Because there are nuances on every word. It's a high context. You have to unwrap the conversation like an onion. What did he say? There are more into the conversation than what this person is saying. So many of the times when I attend meeting with my friend Steve Clifford, and the other person on the table have said something, and Steve was about to agree, I would tap his leg. No, don't agree. There is more to the context. You have to understand, this is a high context conversation. You have to understand we have to unwrap a lot of things that you don't know or that you need to identify. For example, in an African and Asian context, being equal doesn't work. It's not a function of equal. Here in the West, oh, call me by name, we're equal. It works for me. So when my friend Steve Clifford comes to my church, I will say to him before he comes, when you address me, you better address me properly or they might dislike you. But when we get back to office, you can call me Yemi, I call you Steve. But when you come to my church and you address me as if we are mates or if we are at par in that manner, the people I lead see that as a disrespect. So you've got to understand these cultural nuances if you are going to engage with different parts of the world. The top bit is what is called the cultural strategy. The cultural strategy, cultural intelligence strategy, is your awareness and ability to plan for multicultural interaction and engagement. It's planning ahead before you actually engage in a cultural diverse encounter. It's your awareness of yourself and sensing the perspective of others, checking clearly very well the assumption and adjusting yourself before you enter into the conversation. You know, in the Western world, we are individualistic in what we do. So, individualistic in the sense that everybody pursues his own interest. Once I've said it, it's me and everybody goes. Whereas in Africa and Asia, it is collectivism. So there's a strong relationship around everyone takes responsibility. We are together, we are family. Like they say in Africa, it takes a village to raise a child. It's collective responsibility. Whereas it's extremely individualistic here. I leave my house, you leave your house. I come to church, I say hello to you. If I don't invite you, don't come to my house. But back in Africa or Asia, I don't need to invite you before you knock on the door of my house. You're welcome. I don't need to send an invitation to you when my daughter is getting married. I say it's only for 40 people. What is 40 people? The whole village is coming. That's the way we operate. So it's understanding that nuances and stuff like that. And it's the same thing when we come to the West. So you might be my best friend at work, and you might be getting married, but I won't get the invitation. It's very simple. It's because it's individualistic. You want those who you can cater for. But back in an African context, I'm getting married, the whole office, the whole village, the whole street, everybody bring their own food, their own meal. It's a party. It's collectivism. And so we have to understand that when we are leading people from a different context, what does it mean? How do we engage and how do we relate? And finally, the last part of that is what I call cultural action. It's your ability to then to adapt when relating and working in multicultural context. Your flexibility to verbal and non-verbal behavior, where you modify your speech and your verbal behavior. So at this point, you have now you almost become an expert when you enter that world in the way you behave, in the way you see things, in the way you do things. So you have come into actually activating what you have learned over a period of time. You know, I found cultural intelligence extremely interesting, even when we are communicating. You know, it's very interesting that there was this test they gave out to students on the cultural intelligence like that. So they did say that there was a boat about to sink, and a man was in the boat with his wife, his child, and his mother. And then they asked people from different ethnic contexts, who are you going to save first? They asked people, different people. Guess the answers from different people. The people from Africa and Asia, all of them unequivocally said they were going to save their mother. Everyone from US and Europe, they said they were going to save their child. Unfortunately, nobody was saving the partner. But what do you learn out of this? It means what is important to us individually is different. To an African, my mother is important to me. To a European, my child is important to me. No one is wrong, but it's just the lens at which we see life, at which we evaluate life, and at which we engage in what we do. Friends, as I bring this to close, let me just encourage you that we live in a world now where the ministry for the future is beyond just doing ministry within the confine and the context of our cultural narrative. We live beyond just taking what is called to us as the gospel. We live in the world where there are diverse expressions, either with age, either with gender, either with culture or ethnicity, are different. And those that will be able to make a difference in future in the world are those who are able to change. For you as leaders who are listening to me, you probably are facing a challenge in where you are in moving along your cultural flexibility. Maybe people that are not like you have come to your church and they have left. Maybe you are leading the people that doesn't look like you and you are always having conflict with them. And you are thinking, why are we not getting home together? This is the point where you have to take time to understand cultural intelligence. Teaching you like this will not make you be an expert in cultural intelligence. It's a whole array of deconstructing the mind and the heart and then reconstructing it in a way that will make you to be fragile and to be agile to make the future be the best of what it's supposed to be. You know, I end by reading what Apostle Paul wrote about Jesus Christ in the book of Philippians. And this really settled it for me, really. The agility of Jesus Christ and the impact of what he made. In Philippians chapter 2, from verses 6, it reads, it says, who be in the very nature of God. Nature of God. It comes from the nature, the person, the personality of God. He did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. I'm not equal to you, God. So I'm going to use that to my advantage when I come into the world. Rather, he made himself nothing. He deconstructed himself to be nothing by taking the very nature of a servant. Being made in human likeness, God become man in human likeness so that he can interact, cultural change, cultural journey, cultural transformation. And being found in appearance as a man, in an appearance of a man, God found in an appearance of a man so that he can relate with me. Cultural change. He humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death unto the cross. You can see Jesus going through all the capability of cultural intelligence. There's a cultural drive here. Incarnation. I'm going to save Yemi in this world. There was a drive. God, I'm going to become man. The drive. Then there's the knowledge. I know I am God, but then I want to be man. Born as a man. Grew as a man. There was a cultural strategy. Being able to engage with the people in the strategic context of their own world, and the action, what was the action? Such a way that he was able to identify with us to the point that he died for us, so that by his incarnation and cultural journey, you and I can become the follower of Jesus Christ. What is the challenge for you today? God is asking you, don't take too important your cultural core. Wear the image of God and be flexible, so that it's not only about you, it's how you can adjust to other people, their cultural worlds, ultimately that Jesus may be known and many people become the follower of Jesus. Thank you very much. God bless you. I can't wait to answer the questions that comes from you. Thank you.